Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bruce West, and I'm the moderator today. I'm from the United States. Thank you for your attendance. I'd like to introduce the speakers today for the Accidental Home Educator. And from left to right, we have Liz Gitonga. She's from Kenya. Next to her is Silvia Copio from Portugal. Jenn Hodge is right there in the middle in the pink from the UK. Debora Lutolf from Switzerland. And then we have Sameera Mohammad from the United Arab Emirates. Each speaker will have 10 minutes to talk. And then at the end of that, we will have about 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer. So as they're talking, please write down some notes, take some notes for some questions, and then I'll have a mic down here at the bottom of your right over here for the questions. So their bios and all the information is online, so they're just going to jump right in and start with the presentations. So Liz, you have the microphone.
Thank you. I'm Liz Gitonga, and maybe just to get a sense of who we have in the room, any first-time home educators, like 1 year home education? No? Homeschool leaders? Right, yeah, and in between? Right, okay, just so that I'm relevant in this. So I'm from Kenya, and we began home schooling about 25 years ago now, 25, 26. But it was all by accident, and I never intended to home educate. If anything, the minute I heard about it, I knew that's what I do not want to do. But what made me then become a home educator and stay on for 25 years? So when our daughter was born, my husband and I had already decided that I would quit my job as a teacher to raise our child. And so I did that. And when she was 3 years old, we thought, well, this is the time people begin looking for schools. So I began going around the neighborhood and looking at what do their kindergartens or preschool look like. And it was at the height of the most competitive time in our education system. And there was a school of very good repute, but they told me, by the time your daughter is 4 years old, she'll be doing full days of school. By the time she's 5 years old, we'll want her to come in on Saturday mornings. And that was very shocking to me, because I knew that the responsibility of raising and nurturing a child is the parents. And that's why I had left my work to bring up the child. And essentially what they were telling me is that your work is done. You can now go back to work. We'll take it over from here. And I did not agree with that. I thought there's so much more for me to do as a mommy in bringing up our child. But still, that didn't leave me with a solution for what are we going to do about school. And went further afield, further out from our neighborhood. And I did see some good schools that were more play-oriented, that allowed children to be children, and you could even do 3 days a week. And I thought, this is what we want. But the two obstacles we had was, one, those schools were very far away from where we lived. That would mean that we'd probably need to get up, including the young girl, at maybe 5:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock to get out before the traffic builds up. And I thought that does not sound like the abundant life. And secondly, the schools were pretty costly. And with our family budgets, that was not attainable at that time. And so we were in that dilemma trying to figure what are we going to do about school. And in Kenya, there is a big, big push for academics. Academics is not like number one. It's better your child does not get food, but they get an education. We really value education in that way for various historical reasons, but also because it's always seen as the avenue, and I would imagine globally, to some extent, the avenue to a better life. And our country only got independent in 1963. So really we are, education is not like centuries old in the way we know modern day education. We really are second generation people who have had education as structured today, learning to read and write, and being able to participate in an international knowledge exchange. So that's part of the reason why it's highly prized, because we would like, of course, to be able to have international standing and correspondence and growth and relevance. So for that reason, for those two obstacles, we were stuck because we knew she must go to school. It never even occurred to us that she could go when she's a little older. We thought she needs to go now. And just around then, a friend of ours who had lived in Kenya for a long time and was now back in the US, and she had been a missionary in Kenya, she happened to visit at that time, and she said, why don't you people think of homeschooling as you wait to build your family income, move nearer to the schools that you like? Think of homeschooling. And I hated that idea. I totally hated it. I had 2 degrees in education. And I knew that children learn in a classroom like this, 30 children, a teacher in front, put up your hand and give the answer, and our schools are competitive. We need to know who's the top of the class, who's at the bottom of the class. And I thought, so who's going to be the top of the class if she's only alone? And, where will the competition come from? And, of course, the question of socialization was also key. I thought, just me and her, that's going to be like extremely boring, very unmotivating for her, because what will I do with her the whole day? And I asked that to our friend. And she said, but right now, what are you currently doing with her every day? And I said, well, I prepare meals, and she'll be there at the kitchen playing with containers, or we'll be talking or singing. And I'll go to buy groceries, and I'll go with her. I go for my Bible studies. I go with her. We go and visit her grandmother and her grandfather. We just live life together. And she said, Liz, just continue that way. That is a big education that you're already giving. And my husband thought that's the most brilliant idea he had ever heard of. I still thought this is a very, very, very bad idea. It's easy for you to like it because in the morning, you get in the car and go to work, and you leave us here. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the line, when this doesn't turn out well, whose fault will it be? I'll feel that I am to blame for the distraction of our daughter, because that's what I anticipated. But I had no choices at that time, and so I very, very grudgingly, kicking and raving, began internalizing the idea that I am educating our daughter at home. And the other thing Susie told me to do that I hadn't been doing was read to her. We used to read, but not very intentionally. And she said, just read every day, get some interest books, read board books with her, picture books, or books of great stories, tell her stories. And so I added that on. And pretty much didn't change much else of what we were doing till she needed to learn how to read. And I said, you see, I knew this was a bad idea. I do not know how to teach a child how to read. I'm a high school teacher. The children come to me when they know how to read. How am I going to do this? She's ruined forever. And, I told my husband, look, this was not a good idea at all. But just at that time, very providentially, I visited another friend who had a whole bookcase of books. And we are talking, and I'm saying, Gloria really needs to go to school. She needs to learn how to read. She's 4. I think she must have been like 4.5 years old or something. And she said, but Liz, there's a book here that I have. She wasn't even a homeschooler, but she had great books. Would you like to try this book? And I don't know how many of you may have come across the book, Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And that's the book that she gave me. And 20 minutes every day, I spent with Gloria, and she began learning how to read. I could not believe it. That was a miracle unfolding before my eyes. And that was the first time that I began thinking, home education may work, homeschooling may work, because this was the greatest impossibility for me, and it was happening before my eyes. I had made a booking in those nice schools, and our budget had increased, and we were able to move to that other side of town, and the schools called me and said, we have a place for your daughter, you booked a place, we are now taking in the intake for the year. And I did not want to share this victory with anybody else. I said, she's learning how to read. I would like us to finish that, and then she will come. So could we take the booking next year? And they said, okay, we'll put in an application for you next year. We'll transfer it to next year. And by the next year, I had had so much growth and experience and joy in homeschooling that I thought, no, let's do this one more year, just one more year, because now we have learned how to read and now we're doing number work. Let's just do some number work so that when she goes to school, she's ready and can get on with the others. And after that, the question became, after that year, another great successful year, and now we had like 2 or 3 other families that had watched us and had said, we like what you're doing. And I didn't know what they liked. But I said, okay, because they would bring their kids to play with my daughter. And I think they liked the freedom that we had. So the question soon became, why do we need to go to school? When I evaluated what we're doing and what I hope to get in school, I thought we were getting so much more. We were getting playtime. We were getting time with grandma and grandpa. We were getting to organize our program around ourselves. My daughter was really growing. She became the secretary, little secretary, well, telephone receptionist for my husband's business. And she'd always pick the phone and say, hello, Lazami Associates, can I help you? And, it was just, I thought, wow, she could grow. She's a young girl. She already knows how to answer the phone, which any 4-year-old would know, only that they don't get the opportunity to do so because they're busy in school. And so that became the reason that we progressively became home educators. And I will just say as a last line of thought that home education for us has been like the children of Israel going through the desert, one day at a time. Enough for the day is what our provision has been in every way. And for tomorrow, we've always found great provision for the way ahead. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I want to begin to be very honest and clear. I think I was expecting this exact moment since the day one. Probably it will be the most difficult speech that I will ever make, because as you will see, the story that I have to tell you is a painful story with a good end. Okay, I'm being a spoiler already. Everything will finish very, very well. But it all begins because a young boy with 10 years old attending school in the 5th grade began to have lots of health problems related to mental health, and began to say to his mother, "Mother, please save me from this. I want to die." It was no less than this. And during 4.5 months, each day, and I have that on a diary, we went to hospital because the somatic symptoms were completely, you would not believe me if I was. And there was a moment that I was talking with one of my best friends, and my friend asked me, "Why are your kids going to school?" And I said, "Because it's mandatory, of course." And she said, "No, it isn't. Do you know something about homeschooling?" And I said, "What?" And so the first moment, my first intention on doing homeschooling with this kid, that is my oldest boy, was because I wanted to save him from pain. I wanted to let him know that me and his father, that is over there, no matter what, we are here to not only to make you live, but to make you see how life is wonderful. So we didn't begin because we wanted to teach anything at home. We just wanted to remove our kids from something that was being painful. And see, I'm not even saying that the school was a bad school, because it wasn't. It was only an environment that it was not the environment for my kids. And because I didn't know at the time that it would be better to educate them through a family environment, I suggest I did that. So I had to deal with guilt for some years because I wish I would knew this option sooner. And in this story, there are another moment when my kid began to get well, with lots of funny stories on the way, already doing homeschooling. Once this kid, with 13 years old, my oldest son, said to me, "Mother, you know what? I don't want to know anyone else from my age that is having the same pain I have, so I want to help everyone." And that was that moment that was the moment that I decided to advocate and to do what I do today. And I'm so grateful for that. So during those times, and look, I'm focusing my story on my oldest one, but unfortunately, as a family, we lived this the second time and the third time, okay? So it was 3. And one of the things that I want to underline here was the amount of people around us that were trying to convince us that our kids, mainly my oldest, would not be anyone in any time in their future life. So people, teachers, doctors, society in general, were trying to make me believe, look, your kid has a disability, so you have to conform yourself. He will never get skills to read or work or do everything, whatever yeah. So what I want to show you is that yesterday in the press release, I said that I honestly believe that we are saving lives. So now you know what I mean. I honestly believe that we are saving lives. And my strong wish is that more and more and more and more families know sooner that homeschooling exists, even before having to choose putting the kids at school. And I'm not saying, look again, you will not hear from me that schools are a bad choice, because to be honest, I don't believe on that. I just believe that schools should not be mandatory and see as something that is the savior of our life, because they are. This is not the role of a school, and on the contrary, the new world that we need to build has to be based on this value that a family community is. And I strongly believe that nobody, no one, not even an adult, a child, will be completely fulfilled if he doesn't establish a good connection with his own family. And we all have families, so we all have challenges, right? But what I really want to show is, yes, it was an accident that happened in a very, very painful moment of our lives. But probably because it was so painful, right now I'm living a joy and a happiness that I would not imagine that I would live ever. So I want to finish my presentation showing you what this 10 years old boy, now with 23, is doing. The one that everyone was telling me that would do nothing. So I will let you know, you'll see, not even 2 minutes, something that he produces, and please, more than watch, listen, because he is the most wonderful musical composer that you will ever met. I'm sorry, as a mother, I need to. So let me see if I can. Okay. Just for you to recognize him, is the one that is conducting the orchestra, and he will appear playing the piano as well, and he's the composer.
presentation to queue up. Well, I'll start now while that gets sorted. So my name's Jenn Hodge. I'm from the UK. I am a home educator of 4 young people. My eldest is here today, Florrie, who's 16. And I'm CEO of an alternative education provision. And we are in the UK, that means generally that you're supporting lots of children in school that are struggling. But in fact, 90% of the young people that attend us are home educators. So it's really exciting that we've managed to create a space where home educators can come and learn together and access lots of incredible kind of resources. So my talk today is basically an act of encouragement to all individuals who are maybe accidental home educators and just need a boost to their confidence for their journey ahead. So first of all, don't panic. This is probably the one thing that all home educators who have been around the block a few times will tell you. Home education will look different for everybody. So if you talk to somebody and they talk about timetables, curriculums, examinations, classes, and you're there thinking, we just want to go and play in the woods, that's fine. The point of home education, what makes it special and makes it fantastic is the fact that it's unique for your child and you. And every young person is different. Your family is different. It will look different. And in fact, within my family, with my 4 children, they have all had a very different home education journey. They're all learning in different ways. So it's completely unique for you. So people become accidental home educators for lots of reasons, but the 3 key reasons I've listed here are when you've got special educational needs and disabilities and your young person's needs are not being met in school, bullying and low mental health. Now in the UK, we have got a massive problem at the moment with mental health in secondary schools. Due to various reasons ranging from governmental decisions affecting education 20 years ago with reducing of creative subjects and kind of hands-on learning, the COVID pandemic, social media, mobile phone use, so many things are causing so many stresses in schools, and the schools are responding by tightening everything. They are enforcing stricter uniform, enforcing stricter behaviour policies, and it's actually mostly our neurodivergent young people that are suffering. So school is just one way to learn, and I think our speakers so far have touched on this. It's one way, and it's not the best for lots of people. So there are young people who will do well in school and have a positive experience, but in fact lots of people don't. So it's important to remember that, because it's very easy to feel that you are doing something completely different and not positive, and you're the odd one, and like these guys have touched on, your child is going to be carry this huge disadvantage for the rest of their life, but actually it's generally the reverse of that. So what qualifies you to be a home eder? Can you keep your young person safe? Physical, emotional, mental. Does your child have the right supervision depending on their age? Obviously, if you're home edding a 5-year-old, you're going to need to be around, or there's somebody to be safe adult to be around them. If they're 15, they're going to have a bit more independent learning time. Can you provide basic resources? You don't need to go out and spend thousands of pounds on all curriculums and brand new shiny things. You need a house that has got all the things that it's already got in it. So if you've got a young child, they can do dress up with your wardrobe. You've got your pots and pans. They need colouring pencils and paper, box of Lego and a library card. So just basic resources does the job. Can you enable them to see people? They don't have to be seeing people 24 hours a day. It could be connecting with grandparents, family, neighbours, friends, clubs. It's just ensuring that they're having some opportunities to communicate with others. And can you listen, talk, support and encourage? Listen is number 1 on that, because being able to listen to our young people, being able to understand what their needs are and respond to them is key to us having a really successful home education journey. So if you can tick all of those boxes, I'm very happy to award you a certificate to say that you are officially able to be a home educator, because I think that's one thing as home educators we often struggle with, is that kind of imposter syndrome idea that we are not qualified to be raising our young people, but in fact we are. So what comes next? We just need to meet their needs. Their needs are going to vary. Their needs are going to vary depending on their age, depending on what they're interested in. If you have got a carpenter in the making, their needs are going to be a lot different to if you have a composer in the making or a mathematical genius. Okay, so everybody has different needs, so you're going to be flexible to meeting their needs. So we do this with an access to a variety of experience in humans. Going to the museum, going to the woods, meeting people, going shopping, getting to the library, booking on to see talks, visiting local community theatre, getting out and speaking to people, lots of different experiences, so your young person can find out about the rich tapestry of the world and what interests them. Safe internet access is super useful. It's something we all take for granted, but there is so much on there. In the UK, you've got access to free open university courses. There's so much content and the answer to every question that you might be posed as a home educating parent. Specific resources to support interests. So as you go on your home ed journey, if you've got a young person who is specifically interested in something, you might need to think about getting something in a bit more than your basic supplies. But speak to other home educators, connect with your community, because the likelihood is somebody has one of what you want in the back of a cupboard that's not being used anymore. And access to qualifications. You do not have to take qualifications, and I am very pro not taking qualifications just for the sake of it. Qualifications to me should be something that we proactively engage with because we're interested and we want to do them, because otherwise it's a bit of an uphill battle. Access to qualifications in the UK, you can go to college. In the UK, college is something you do at 16 to 18, kind of an upper high school, and you can get into college to do courses without having the GCSE requirements going in at level 1. So you can access something even if you haven't got GCSEs. GCSEs are fantastic, they're really useful. If your young person is interested, that's great, but you don't have to have them. Access to qualifications can be done through college, can be done through organisations such as the kind that I run. You can buy the curriculum, you can book into an external assessor. There is so much you can do. There's so many options, varying costs, but lots that you can do. So it's important to find your path. And this is about the really getting in and going forwards if you're an accidental home educator. If your young person has come out because of bullying, mental health, any of those kind of things, please expect a journey of recovery, particularly if they're neurodivergent or they might possibly be neurodivergent. You need time to recover from the stress, the trauma and burnout of school before maybe getting into the swing of how things are going to look. Remember that humans are not robots. You can make mistakes, you're allowed. Your young person is allowed to make mistakes. You can try things out, they might not work, you can try something different. You don't have to get it all right on day one. It can look however you want it to look. And it's okay if you have a day where you sit in front of the TV in your pajamas with a box of popcorn. And it's okay, actually, sometimes if that turns into more than a few days, because if it's anything like my home ed journey, we've had days like that. We've then been learning Latin on Christmas Day one day because somebody decided they wanted to do it. Find your people, build a village and lean in on them. In the UK at the moment, there's estimated around, I think, 180,000 home educators, many of whom are unregistered. So they are there. They're not hidden away. They are everywhere. Use social media, connect with your local community, find your people, however works for you, whether it's online or in person, and get support. Talk to people who have been there and done it, and be reassured by their wonderful, successful, healthy, happy young people and the wonderful journeys that they're on. Trust the process. Okay, you have to lean into it. You have to trust the process. I've been there. I've been there with children not read it. Oh, when are they going to read? Oh, look, they're reading. When are they going to do? Oh, look, now they're doing it. I had my son, wonderful example. He's now 15. Didn't really want to write anything till he was about 10. He would write greetings cards, but that was it. Wasn't interested. By the time he was 12, he'd started writing a novel. He's now 100,000 words into it. He's already taken some GCSEs in English. It happens when it happens. You just have to facilitate. And breathe out. Just breathe out, just relax, okay? This isn't, home education is a fantastic, wonderful experience. It's not a trauma, it's not a negative thing. It's the start of a new way of life for you that's going to be really cool. And just remember, you helped your young person learn some pretty tricky things already. You helped them to walk, and you helped them to talk, on top of everything else you supported them with. So really, the rest of it is going to be a walk in the park. So just keep doing what works, and don't be afraid to change up what doesn't. Thank you.
Hi. So I'm Debbie, and I'm the happy mom of 4 homeschool kids, all of which are obviously neuroatypical and that didn't fit in school. Sorry. And one of which is here today and will speak later, so if you're curious, you can go and listen to Lily speak later. All of my 4 kids presented massive challenges when they were faced with the traditional learning, you know, sit down and do what I tell you when I tell you. Frame, that didn't work. My mom wasn't surprised, but that's a different story. The thing as a mom is I saw my kids slowly shut down. I saw my kids' light turn off. I was starting to hold hair because kids had to throw up before going to school. I had to go look for my daughter in the woods because she wasn't at school. And it turns into this slow nightmare as a mom where you think, you know, what are the next 11 years going to be like? And you stop sleeping, your kids stop sleeping, your family life goes to hell. Your husband doesn't understand because he's at work all day, he comes home, everything's fine, dinner's there, kids are settled in. And it can turn into something very, very complicated. I felt very lonely, and my dream life was slowly fading away at that stage. So today, because we've already had all these amazing stories, I wanted to touch on something a little bit different, is if you are in a position in a community where you can help people around you, what happens when you have these type of homeschoolers? So yeah, sorry, that was my tribe. In Switzerland, between 60 and 70% of the families that are homeschooling, are what we call second choicers, which means they did not choose to be homeschoolers. They started at school, and then something started going wrong, and they end up feeling very lonely. And these families are broken, unprepared, fragile, and often coming apart at the seams. They're very much under pressure. And yet, very strangely, once they decide to homeschool, their success is going to affect you as a homeschooling family, because the state all of a sudden decides that since they're homeschooling, they've obviously chosen to homeschool. Therefore, whatever that kid is doing, whatever his results, are going to be taken into consideration for other homeschooling families. So if anything, that is one good reason to support these children. And also because these kids deserve to have a life and to be successful. Because when your family is breaking apart, and you decide to homeschool, you're not doing it on purpose. And to me, purpose is so important, is so important in life, and is what is going to give you self-confidence. So the first question you have when you're homeschooling and you just start to homeschool by accident is, what is my purpose as a parent? How can I help my child find their purpose? How can I help my child rediscover themselves and start trusting themselves again, and find self-confidence? Because when you've had to pull the brakes on and start homeschooling, it's generally because school has been a place of suffering for a while. You don't just decide that overnight. The tension in the couple and the family is usually sky high. That kid is often broken, convinced of being worthless, shut in, sometimes even aggressive, and they carry the responsibility of being And I often meet these families after a phone call that sadly starts something like, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm calling you today because my son said he would kill himself if I make him go back to school." And sadly, I have phone calls like that at least once a week, every week, maybe 2 or 3. And in those moments, how can you help? Because if you start talking about John Holt or Maria Montessori or Céline Alvarez for the French, they can't hear you. That is not what they need to hear right now. These people at that moment, they need someone who listens to them. And if you are ever at the end of one of those phone calls, please take the time. Sorry, I was one of those moms. So yeah, please first listen, let them talk, because nobody else hears you at that stage. Then maybe share a little bit of your story, how your kids are doing today, the social and political involvement that they are in, the sports, their dreams, that going to an activity with like-minded people is not the same as going to a place of suffering, that they will go back to being social kids. Remind them that learning under pressure isn't possible, that a kid is already not learning when he's suffering in school, that if they don't defend their children, who will? Finding that place of peace and calm again is the key to their kids' future, and it will happen, and it will also happen outside of school. Talk about the time that you have. Talk about the time you have to be, to live, to heal, and to hug. Lift up these families, human to human, mom to mom. Because yes, I'm sorry guys, but in 14 years of answering the phone, I've had one dad. So mainly it's the moms. If you can, invite them to come and meet you, offer to help with starting with very practical things. You know, what books are you using, what program, how can you meet others? And remember that emotionally broken kids and family need time to heal, to trust again. They need to hear that reading in the couch is learning, that cooking together, working outside, or just lying in the sky, grass, watching the sky is okay. Please, because I've been there, and because I've been on the receiving end of so many phone calls, please take the time. Because if you choose to, you can really, really bring smiles back to families. Because some kids just can't study sitting down. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sameera Mohammad, and well, there we go. This title is couldn't be more apt for me. Truly an accidental home educator. So just like many of you in the audience, I was once a believer in schooling, and you know, the best thing that you can do for your kids is to just send them to a good school, and that's what I did. But I was one of those nosy moms who were always poking their nose in, you know, what they're doing, and the teachers didn't really like me because I was always there, because I was always highlighting what they were missing. Somehow I just knew that they're not doing their job properly. So I was, not happy with this school, and then I was not happy with that school or that teacher. And I thought, okay, this school is not working out. Let me find another school, just like anyone would think. Because I belong from the dark ages where I did not know there was anything called homeschooling, okay? And hence, that's the reason I am a big advocate of homeschoolers in the region that I live in. So I moved from one school to another, and to another, and to another. My poor kids, traumatic experience for them. Some of the schools had entrance exams, and we were preparing them for those exams, and it was pretty dreadful, that whole process. But I was so concerned. I said, I don't want my kids to be growing up into these other teenagers that I'm looking into right now, who go to these brilliant schools. And regardless of the social class, at that time my kids were like 8 or 9, regardless of any social class I looked at, they were behaving rudely, not interested. I remember I asked somebody who was in IGCSE, and I said, what do you want to do after you finish your exams? Like, I don't know. And I was like, how can they be so aimless, and they have no projection, they have no passion, yet they're going to this amazing, beautiful campus, all the amenities which you would just fall for, a basketball court and all those things. And they're speaking like this. So I said, my kids, I'm not, there has to be something. There has to be something out there. And it's not the schools. So I've already tried out the best schools. So just took a giant leap of faith, had no idea about homeschooling, prayed to God, and I'm so glad that I found a bunch of moms in Abu Dhabi, in just next door, homeschooling. I said, what is it? What do you do? And how do you do it? And I had 1 million questions. Anyway, started to homeschool my kids, and like my friends shared their experience, we went through whole process of deschooling them because of all the negative experience that they had in school. They were terrified. So math was, they had a mathophobia, if that kind of thing exists somewhere. I had to literally throw all the math books out and said, all right, we're not doing any of that. We'll just go back to basic. We'll just do subtraction, addition, multiplication, division. And they were doing math, not realizing they're doing math because it was not coming out from those dreadful books and even more deadlier teachers. So anyway, so what I actually realized is that I wasn't really against any particular schools, but it was just the schooling that was not working for me. And we quickly embraced this new life. And my kids, although they were 8 and 9 at that time, I made them sit down and talk about it. And guys, are you in or not? Well, let's just try it for a year, okay? What's the worst that can happen? Next year, you can go back to the same grade because we won't have the transcript. And they're lovely. And you'll be, if you want to see how they turned out, you can listen to them tomorrow in the family track. But my older 2 kids will be speaking. My younger 2 never saw walls of the school. They they're all homeschooled, and my younger 2 didn't. They only saw school in movies and TVs. So I'll just share. This is our beautiful family, and so there were challenges. There were many challenges. I would not say. Some were the side effects of sending them to school. Some were natural. I do want to add on to this accidental homeschooler. I was actually an accidental nutritionist, an accidental psychologist, because I self-diagnosed my son's autism and my daughter food allergies and all those things because I was able to spend time with them. Anyway, so they started with homeschooling, and this was something that we kind of divided the principles into. Because I wanted them to be well-rounded. I didn't want them to turn out to be those kids that I saw growing up into. We started with a very simple, eclectic curriculum and just kept building on it. Every child, all my 4 children were different. They didn't make any of my day easier. In fact, even the older 2 who were just exactly the same age, even their interests were different. So I was actually teaching 4 different kids with 4 different levels of interest. But my theory was very simple. I was working with their strengths, and I tried to fuel their strengths, and then just kind of dealt with the weaknesses, not focusing on their weaknesses, because all of them had their own share of weaknesses, just like all of us have. And that just worked great, because my son, who was bullied in school, when he was in school, hated math, and thought that maybe he's no good, he eventually became champion in history competitions, because that was his passion, and he never expressed. but we could do all those things when he was homeschooled. Some of the methodologies that we followed in a simple nutshell was just sticking to the basics. Try to develop, their character. So we worked on, raising these kids with showing the best examples so that they become, tolerant of other cultures and faith, and to be mindful of people who have any challenge, physical disability in his right arm, and he was picked. That was the boys used to bully him in school. They immediately saw that he's not going to punch them back, and they would just try all sorts of things. So I tried to teach them to be, how you should be more compassionate towards other kids if you see them, and those kind of other things which we all like to do, to make them well-rounded. This is something that I want to share with you, but before that, I just want to tell you that please have faith in your as a mother. Don't underestimate yourself. I see moms doubting themselves, and just like my good friend over here shared, that when you gave birth to them, you taught them how to walk, you taught them how to talk, then you can do this. Don't underestimate yourself. God has given you this responsibility of these kids. He's not giving you responsibility for the whole country, but these 2, 4, 6 kids of yours are your responsibility. You have the manual for these kids. No one else does. Even your sister cannot be that same person as you are. So trust in your ability and have your superpowers. I'm going to play this, and you can see how all my 4 kids just flourished through this journey of homeschooling. Okay, there's supposed to be a sound, but anyway, then I can keep talking. Oh, there's a... So that's my son winning the History BN Bowl. We played in European competition, Asian competition after qualifying from the region that I live in. My daughter is a passionate, she was very shy, turned out to be a great speaker. You will be listening to her tomorrow, and you can decide for yourself. These are 2 younger boys turned out to be really amazing when it comes to Lego building and hands-on projects, because they learned school completely out of the box. Not that I designed that for them, but I worked on what they wanted to do. I was just providing what they liked doing. So it was purely personalized learning. And they're now, my youngest is in grade 10, and my second youngest will be graduating high school. So these are and there are hundreds and hundreds of success stories that you can hear. This is just a few that you have, but I would say lastly that just trust in yourself and jump in and do whatever it takes for your children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies, for your presentation and your hard work and your thoughts and what you've said. We thank you for opening up. I know it can make you vulnerable, but thank you for that and giving us all just a little bit of insight into your lives and the road that you've traveled. So thank you very much. I would like to open the floor now for Q&A. If anybody has any questions, we have a little bit of time left that we can do that. If you would just come on down here to the bottom near your right, I'll hand you the mic, and they'll be more than willing to answer your questions. So if you would, come on down.
Thank you. I have one question. How do you find the time to be a woman? Like just you.
Okay. You know what? I grew up not wanting to be a mother, not wanting to marry, to be married. My main dream was to be a researcher, single one, not having a family to take care of. You know, can you imagine that on me? I cannot longer remember being like that, but I was. I worked as an art curator during almost 20 years. I never felt more feminine, realized, with more time for being myself as now, doing homeschooling, staying at home, being the worst housekeeper that you can even imagine. My kids are, you know. So this is one of the things that I think is important. But it's important to realize that I got more time doing homeschool because when my kids were attending school, I was always on traffic with my hair undone, with no time for anything. And now we have time to be together. I have time to be alone when I need. We have time for a more natural life. And with that, I feel more woman than I was before. And I am more proud of being a woman than I was before. So I think it works in that way as well.
Yeah. When my kids were not doing well, I spent a lot of time running to the doctors with them and being very stressful and bringing them to school and running back home and quickly doing a little bit of cleaning and prepping lunch and then running back to school to pick them up and so on. When they were homeschooled, they settled down and all of a sudden I had a lot more time. So I think I actually found time to be a mom, found time to be a wife, found time for myself way faster being a homeschool mom than I thought would be possible.
Okay, any other questions from the floor? Do you have another one?
Yeah, I do. Okay. How did you manage to, with the friends and family reaction when you choose to homeschooling? If my question was clear.
Yes.
One answer to that is ignore, which I did. Because, you know, what homeschooling did to our family is it just, you know, God just created that filter that probably you would have never been able to do it yourself. But that filter happened is like you just created, just like my friend said over here, you create your own village with positive people around you, encouraging, and all those people who don't believe in you and like, what are you going to do? You're messing up your child's life. You just need to ignore them and have your, you know, be focused with your mission and vision with your kids.
I think for me, I was the rebel when I was growing up. So I was a bit of a rebel in school. I was very nonconformist. So although I didn't plan to home educate until I had my baby, and the baby was 6 months old, and I decided that I loved it, and why would I want to go and put them into a nursery when I was having such a fantastic time being a mum? So for me, taking that step was kind of natural because I was used to doing things that were a bit different. It was only 3 years ago I realised it was because I was an ADHD brain, but you know, we didn't know that at the time. My mum, I've got a very small family. My mum was always really supportive of me, but she was a little bit skeptical. But it didn't take long for her to be turning around and going, I wish I'd done this. I so wish I'd done this for you, because I struggled in school at different times. Again, definitely kind of undiagnosed neurodivergence, and schools are schools. And she was actually kind of like, I wish I'd done this. So that was really lovely, kind of just watching that process of her trusting it, seeing the process as well, and kind of seeing the positive. And the only really negative stuff, well, not negative, it would be the shops. I don't know if you guys had that. You go to the grocery store and you'd sometimes get questions, why are they not in school? But if with a big smile on your face and you go, yeah, we home educate, it's fantastic. And yeah, so that was my journey.
It's funny because my eldest, when she was a kid, a lot of people would ask, why aren't you at school? My youngest, nobody cares anymore because where we live, there's enough homeschoolers that people have accepted that. What was very important for me when I decided to homeschool, my parents supported me 100%, which came as a massive surprise to me. And then, yeah, some people never actually spoke to me again after that. But like you said, you just filters people out. The really sweet thing I heard from one of their grandparents, 5 years down the line or 6 years down the line, he said to me, when you started, I thought you were absolutely mad. And I knew you, and I knew better than to say anything, so I shut up. Yeah, you know, neurodivergent brains and all that. But then he said to me, today, your kids are the only one I can handle altogether. The others I cannot stand more than one day and more than one at a time. And your kids are always welcome. And that, to me, says a lot about what kind of humans we've managed to raise.
And just to add on to that, I found, especially with my family, that it wouldn't help me. It didn't help me to think of them as the enemy, because actually they were not opposing me. It was the idea that they were not familiar with. And it's easy for me to go defensive and say, but I know what I'm doing, or, you know, and give all the data and statistics. But when I stepped back and realized my mom loves my children, my mother-in-law loves my children, my sister, she loves my children. So any questions they're asking is because they don't understand. And I may not have all the answers, but if I perceive their questions and even kind of, are you sure you know what you're doing? Don't you think you should take them to school? But I see that from a lens of concern, loving concern rather than hostility, then I was able to help them to come alongside and say, well, you know, this is what we are doing, and find opportunities for them to be part of what we are doing. Like when we are doing field trips, have my nieces and nephews come along if it's during their school holidays, ask mom and dad to come and, you know, visit when we are in school, and they get to, you know, see how our school day looks like. And I found that they began understanding what it was. For some who were close and did not understand and were still very concerned, you know, I just kept saying, well, we're doing this a year at a time. And if it works well this year, we'll evaluate. If it works well, we'll continue. And that seemed to, you know, appease them. For strangers out there, my kids became their own advocates, and they'd go to their shops and they'd be asked, why aren't you in school? Because that came to them all the time. And they just said, well, we are homeschooled. And they'd ask, what do you mean? You don't go? No, my mom teaches us. And, you know, they wouldn't even have to give a big defense. They just were very matter of fact saying what happens. And it was more important to me also that the children are comfortable where they are, that they don't feel that, you know, they need to be elsewhere. And for them being able to explain, this is what happens. Yes, my mom teaches me, then that worked well. So just perception for me was really helpful in helping me answer people with gentleness.
Okay, I just have one final question. How and when did you get your husband on board to follow you on your homeschooling journey?
My poor husband. He had no choice. Well, when we talked about it, he gave me a reason, which was very good, because he did not understand anything what I was talking about. It was just maybe French for him, because we don't understand French. But he said that if I was going to tell him that I can't deal with these kids and I'm sending them off to a boarding school, that was a flag or maybe a problem, and he could just then say, why? But then I'm signing up for something that I'm taking all the responsibility. That means I'm taking all the things off for me, but I'm happily, you know, signing up for this. So he said, I just believed in how passionate you were and how you wanted to do. I didn't want to stop you. And at that time, he didn't say this. He was just saying, yeah, I get it, just do it. But later on, he said, I didn't get anything, and I just wanted to support you. And I'm so grateful to this guy, because he is the reason why we are here, and we are here with the whole family in this conference, and he's still sponsoring all these initiatives that I take.
I was lucky to have a husband. The kid's father was really, he saw what was going on. It cost us a marriage, to be honest. Because if you add the neurotypical, atypical kids and all the stress that was related, we didn't survive that. But I'm very lucky. We have now a new daddy in our lives who's been supporting this crazy story for about 13 years without complaining. But what I've had often is when mom call me and say, you have to convince my husband. I never do that, obviously. It's always a question of take the time to talk with them, because often the moms, they've suffered along the child for a while, and when the husbands come home or the dads come home at night, the crisis is over. And dad doesn't realize what's going on, and he's 6 months behind the reflection of the mom. And I think we have to, as moms, realize that either they trust us blindly or they just need time to see what's happening. I have one mom who was fighting every morning with her daughter because she didn't want to get out of the car to get to school, and she called me exhausted. And I said to her, you know, sign up for a conference, go to a course somewhere, let dad handle that. Guess who called me Tuesday night? Because he was going through what his wife was going through. And being a parent, he didn't want to have to impose that on his child. So if your husband doesn't follow, maybe just be honest with them and show them and let them see what you're going through. And you might be surprised. You know, they're parents too.
I'll talk very quickly, but mine's really boring because, as I said, we made the decision when my daughter was 6 months old, and I said, lots of people have been saying to me, when are you going back to work? When are you going back to work? And I was like, well, I don't really want to, because I'm really enjoying being a mum. And so we were literally sat one evening, and I had Florrie just in my arms, and I said, I don't want to go to I don't want to put her into nursery. I don't want to give it to strangers. I'm enjoying this. So I did a quick one-handed Google, as you get very good at doing when you're a mum of a baby. And I said, oh, I don't have to send her to nursery. And then we carried on talking, and I said, oh, school's a bit rubbish, isn't it, really, if you think about it? And I don't really like the whole conformity and having to do what you're told and only being able to focus on one thing in one way. So I did another quick Google search. I said, oh, apparently you can home educate as well, and that's legal. And he just said, oh, right, then, okay, that sounds good. So it was really simple. And I suppose we never got to a point where he is somebody who would speak his mind. And we've never had a point in our raising of the children that we've never had to do anything else. So there's never been a point of going, oh, should we put them into school? So I suppose it's just testament to the fact that it's worked. It's been a fantastic journey.
Cool. So I cannot answer because my husband is over there and I cannot tell the truth. No, I'm joking. Now, I'm very proud to say that we were on this together since the first minute, even because, as I told you, it was not a rational decision. We were living times of despair. So it was something like, okay, we must do that. Let's do this. But I'm bringing to my mind some memories about moments that we struggle a lot, because my husband went home and everyone was playing. And do you remember that, Paul? And Paul was saying, are the kids learning? What are they? I said, look, we learn everything in the morning. So, and I did that. I told my kids, okay, let's only during some time show Paulo, my husband, what we are doing. Let's present Paulo something. So that made the whole change in our dynamic. And another moment that I want to bring is with the community, because we meet twice a week, all day long, in a big group of homeschoolers around Lisbon. And there's almost only mothers there because our fathers are working. And there was this moment when we were all best friends, but our husbands were not. And so we began to create moments like, for example, going to have a week camping together and putting our husbands together. And I will end the story saying that we were commenting with each other, okay, I don't know if our husbands will get along, and then they get along, and that's wonderful.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies, for your comments and the words they've spoken to all of us. We'll take them to our heart. I'd like to go ahead formally just end this session. Again, thank you very much.